You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. Today we're joined by Sam Tetlow, founder and CEO of the Grant Engine, a company that's helping innovative life science and technology companies secure non-dilutive funding at rates 2 to 4 times the national average. Sam's path represents a fascinating blend of engineering innovation, entrepreneurial vision, and venture capital experience. After graduating with honors in aerospace engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute in 1993, Sam joined General Electric's Technical Leadership Program, where he gained experience across multiple divisions, including power systems, aircraft engines, and GE Capital. This foundational experience in sales, financials, and mergers and acquisitions provided a strong foundation for his future career. Following his MBA from UNC Keenan Flager Business School, where he focused on venture capital and entrepreneurship, Sam spent 7 years in venture capital with a focus on life science companies. He's since built 7 companies as either CEO or lead director, including EpiCypher, which was named Best University Startup of 2016 by the U.S. Congress and serves as president and chairman of Emulgent Therapeutics and chairman of Prime Neuro. The genesis of Grant Engine came from Sam's own frustration. After hiring a grant writing company that failed to deliver results for one of his portfolio companies, Sam and his team decided to tackle the challenge themselves. 2 years later, they had secured $13.5 million in awards for 2 of the companies he was inside, and Grant Engine was born. Its mission was clear: to help companies secure funding while building equity value, working only with high-quality people. Grant Engine also delivers on why Sam works in the life sciences: to save lives. Today, Grant Engine has grown to over 75 people, submits over 5% of the SBIRs to NIH, and has a win rate that is 2 to 4 times higher than the national average. Welcome to the podcast, Sam. Really excited to have you here on the air.
Lisa, thank you so much for having me and us. Really pleased to have you, and you've got a great reputation, amazing following, and I'm really glad to be here on Halloween.
Yes, on Halloween. And I promise the topic isn't too spooky, but maybe you can tell me as we're going along here. But we're going to talk about Grant Engine today. So I thought, Sam, the best place to kick the podcast off would be to just start by asking you to explain what Grant Engine does and what makes your approach different from traditional grant writing services.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, really pleased to be here, Lisa. On behalf of our total team, we are here to help our clients get funding, mostly from federal sources, but also state, nonprofit, and ex-US sources. And we work to a great extent with companies, small business, medium, large companies in the life sciences arena. And our team of just over 75 people, we've got a number of things that make us different. And I'll touch on some of the highlights, but I really have built a career as a venture investor, but also as an entrepreneur, similar to many of our clients, building R&D companies where the clients pay us to get a grant awarded. And we really work hard to help our clients build a great product and build a great company. And they get that at no additional charge. And so the things that we do in making that a success is we have a top flight team. It takes about a year to become a full-time lead writer with us at Grant Engine. We only recruit folks that have good biotech, med tech experience. And we teach them and train them outside of a client environment, and then progressively with more volume in a client environment. So after that year, they're really steeped in our approach and what wins grants, and they can put that to play for a client. We also always do a subject matter expert review with a client before we contract with them. And that's really to make sure that the project is going to be competitive, that the project and the team are ready to go, and establish a good working rapport before we contract. That's, of course, complimentary and free, and our clients get a lot of value out of that, regardless of whether they move forward with us or not. And then we have a number of elements in our process that are unique and special, but one of the big ones in terms of when we're writing, but one of the big ones is external review that we have over the years. We're in our 10th year this year, recruited hundreds of reviewers that sit on study section. We've conflicts cleared them in writing, and we pay them very well. And we've really identified 39 excellent reviewers, and they pressure test the grant, find gaps, suggest solutions. And we have free reviewers do that on every grant we submit. We do that after the second draft. We do a final draft to close all of those gaps. And that really gets us as if we were to have submitted inside of a 2.5 week window of time. So that our win rate was good before we did that, but it certainly bumped up quite a bit after that. So those are some of the things that are working together in a synchronicity to make our team work really well for our clients. And I think, though, if I could say that the thing that's really unique and secret is just the caliber of the team that works well together. We leverage a brain trust between us. If someone needs a question, we take it to the group, always in a confidential basis. But this dynamic of really smart individuals who are really committed to our clients' success, working together is a really powerful thing. And that culture that we built really shows up in all the little things that are in between the lines of a job description that make our clients' experience positive. We get good marks on client reviews, and they really, our team really loves what they do. And grant writing is a special flavor of brain damage.
Yes,
and
definitely.
But they love to do it.
Yeah. Whenever you talk to PIs and scientists about it, they dread grant writing. So to find people who actually love it, I mean, kudos to you there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks. And it's really the team. I think we really are hiring on folks that want to realize our mission of saving lives and having an impact on extending the length of a quality life. And so the team is aligned with that vision, and it's really a testament to the caliber of them as individuals and us together as a team that works well together. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the culture and your vision has certainly paid off or translated, because if we go back to the grant rate and the win rate again, it's 2 to 4 times higher win rate than the national average. So talk to us a little bit about what that higher grant rate means in practical terms, especially when the overall SBIR phase 1 success rate is only about 15 to 20%, and NIH's 2024 rate dropped to just 9.9%, just under 10%.
Yeah. It was talk about, we're doing this on Halloween. Talk about a scary year.
Very scary year.
2024. Yeah. On our webpage, you can see that figure of 2x to 4x higher than the national average. And there's a reference that's hyperlinked to a blog post that shows the data set that substantiates that number. And that 2x to 4x speaks to our win rate since we started the company compared to the national average for that same time period, organized by type of grant, whether that's a phase 1 NIH or a fast track or an SBIR contract. And that data set is on our website. It's also in a more detailed presentation that we're happy to send prospective clients. And you're right. I think the national average dropped significantly in 2024. It was actually the lowest win rate.
Yeah, it was terrible
in the history of the SBIR program.
Yeah.
It's like 40. We've been around for 43 years, and this was the low water mark. And not surprisingly, in retrospect, our win rate actually went up in 2024. So we're still saying it's 2x to 4x, but the reality is that it's actually now like 3x to 5x higher than the national average. And I can walk into why we think those two things are happening, but it is, I think it's just a testament to quality is the headline of what that is. But it's we do a lot of work outside of the NIH, ARPA-H. We've been very busy. CDMRP. The DoD has a lot of life sciences healthcare work, and yet the NIH is very good about publishing data at a very detailed level through their data book, and so that's what we use as a benchmarking because they're very good at communicating the average or what at a very detailed level. So that's where we go. But our win rates, for example, like a phase 1 NIH SBIR, STTR is right around just over 43%. Our phase 2 win rate is 55%. Our fast track win rate is 56%. Contracts, which unfortunately are not happening this year, but our traditional win rate is over 80%. But our win rate is in those levels for all programs that we do. We just publish it because, as we like to say, differentiation matters. So we need a benchmark to gauge our own performance against. So that's why we talk about the NIH SBIR program.
So I want to pick your brain a little bit. You mentioned it was 2 to 4 times, now 3 to 5. What's your X factor? What do you think differentiates you? You mentioned well-written grants. You've mentioned team culture, vision. Do you think that's your secret sauce, so to speak, or your X factor? What do you think it is?
So we think about this a lot. And in addition to the things I mentioned, you can't replace the talent of the team. We've got our VP of research has gotten a perfect 10. We've done that a couple of times across the company. And I think the maybe obvious things that I would say is that subject matter expert that we do, that review we do before we contract with a client is really helpful, because if they're not going to be competitive or they're not going to be ready, we let the client know that, and we don't want to engage with them if it's just going to be dead on arrival. And a very high percentage of the time that if they're not ready, that is very welcomed feedback, because we're providing them insights about how to close that gap, whether it's needing an in vivo data model of submitting a cancer grant, or having greater clarity on their target product profile in a therapeutic setting. It is always useful to know, and I think so. And we keep in touch, obviously, with those folks, so that is very useful. And so we're priming a client and a project before we get rolling. Another thing that we do every 6 months is we do a deep dive on we've written thousands of grants, and we look at, in the last 6 months, what are things that are working, what are things that are not working. And we use recent data to validate things that I think turns out are quite durable around themes that make grants win in a company environment for federal and state funding. So things like clarity, things like positioning your product that articulates a profound significance that is better than saving lives, saving tens of thousands of lives every year if that new product gets introduced. All products have interesting significance. You have to really rise above that to make your application undeniable. So you really have to be at that level. And so we validate things that we've learned over the years, and sometimes we find new things. Like we do a refresh on our analysis of study section census. So historically, NIH SBIR study sections were populated to a great extent by academics, and that has increased and decreased by study section. And we can plot some trend lines about industry versus academic population. And the audience of that study section will tune and tailor who we're writing for. Right? That's the first rule of communication, is know your audience. So we get down to that level of detail to really understand which who's on the study section in terms of their backgrounds, and we use that information to tailor content that we're putting together. I think this idea and this awareness. Last thing I'll say is this awareness of knowing how a product will actually be successful in the market, in a patient setting, how it will have to change workflows for a ICU, step down nurse, or the attending physician, or a clinical healthcare provider in a rural hospital setting or clinical setting, for example. The real world impact of how this product will actually work and what needs to change, why it will get adopted, and that awareness of reimbursement, distribution, the training that's needed to bring your product to market. I mean, there's a real, if you've brought products to market in your career, there's a real world experience. There's a real world knowledge that you have in bringing that product that informs what you have to build as you're submitting your grant. And we have that experience. And that is what the SBIR program, which not for nothing is all of our tax dollars at work, right? That's the point of the SBIR program. It is about getting product in market to have an impact. And that does not happen often enough. And so I think that experience of doing that in a way that is real and lifts from a successful track record, I think it shows up in the grant. And reviewers, whether they've got an academic background or an industry background, you can feel that, you can read it, you can see it. And that, I think those are the things that really make a difference for us, in that we're getting a measurable step closer to actually getting that product in the market. And the grant can inform that to a very great degree. And I think those are the things that are different about company grants in general, and for us, company grants that win more.
Now, I also want to talk a little bit about your core service model, because you talk about find, win, and manage. Walk us through what each of those terms means for a typical client, for example.
Yeah. So the identification of the best solicitation is that first part. And really we start upstream of that, of having a strategic client discussion and understanding their product roadmap for the next 6 months, year, 2 years. And if they have visibility into a 3-year horizon, we get that too. And then mapping that down to what solicitations, and given the state of evolution of the company, will align with that product roadmap. And that can look like, for a medtech company, aligning them to MedTech Innovator, which is a great ecosystem partner of ours. That competition can get you $25,000 for a finalist and get you $350,000 for the winner. And that might be an early step to go get successful funding and traction. Maybe it's a phase 1 SBIR. Maybe there's state money if you are in California, Texas, North Carolina, New York. And then getting after federal money on a phase 1. Maybe you've got another program that you have got good preliminary data, but it's not ready for a direct to phase 2. So fast track is the right answer. So the find portion of that is really aligning your product roadmap as the North Star, understanding where funding needs to come on both dilutive and non-dilutive, and then slotting in submissions with the appropriate lead time that will get you funding on that product roadmap. So that's the find part of it. And we offer a solicitation search to do that if the client's got that dialed in. But as part of our relationship, we have these strategic conversations with clients to map out where they're going on their product roadmap and align funding for that. So that's the find portion. The win portion we talked about previously, it is also being persistent. Like all of the things I mentioned are useful, and we have found them to be quite remunerative in our win rate, but it is also about being persistent. And that, we have learned, addresses the randomness in the process, right? There's definitely a meaningful amount of randomness that you can't control no matter how good looking your grant is. And the persistence is a way to fight randomness. So staying with it is also a hallmark of our mission for our clients, and all of the other things that I mentioned that drive win rates. And then once you get an award, congratulations, you've got a bunch of rules that are recently changed under DOGE, and you've got to stay inside the lines, or you run the risk of getting your grant pulled, or maybe not as bad as getting your grant pulled, but you could get buried with audit findings that you then have to go correct later. And we have a whole division creatively called GE Accounting that supports clients in the post-award accounting and compliance. And our hallmark there is that the leader of that group, Chris, he worked at a company that got something like 45 SBIRs over a course of 15-year period. So we always stay inside the lines, and there are elements of flexibility that the SBIR program allows. And so we know how to provide maximum flexibility while always staying inside the lines. And our hallmark there is that we're always audit ready. You want to have your processes defined and consistent. And when an audit comes, you're ready for it. And so we have a very good team there that tailors how we interact with clients depending on what they need. So that's the post-award managed side of the house. A lot of the listeners here in academic settings have entire grants management groups, right, in the universities that handle all of that fun. In a company, you get to do it all yourself. So we're a trusted partner and advisor in that regard.
Now, Sam, as you noted, it's Halloween today. It's been quite a turbulent year for everyone, particularly when it comes to federal funding. As you are well aware, tech transfer offices are dealing with hiring freezes, budget cuts, a 15% indirect cost cap from NIH, DOE, NSF, and DOD, and a whole lot of uncertainty around the SBIR, STTR programs. Talk to us about how you and your team have been advising clients to navigate these turbulent times and all these challenges, which seem to be changing on a daily basis or at least a weekly basis.
Indeed. Halloween happens every year. This one feels different.
It feels like a horror show. We'll just be honest.
It feels like a horror show. And I think it's fair to say it is a horror show. And if you're in the business of using taxpayer dollars to advance leadership and innovation on scientific development and product innovation. And as an aside, if you think about biotechnology as a national security concern, there's real risk for this country in the United States not continuing to lead. And so that, I think it is a national security topic. And while Halloween, does happen every year, this Halloween we're about 31 days into a shutdown. I think when this airs on the 5th will be, plus 6 days. What's unique about this one, I think, is that the reaction of fear, turbulence, uncertainty, given chaos of policy directions is intentional. This is a feature, not a bug, of this current environment. And the administration, the Trump administration, has been very clear and present about that is the goal. They're intentionally, from Russell Vogt to on across OMB and through DOGE and back and forth from 1600 Pennsylvania. This is on purpose, and there's a clear reset that is intentionally trying to happen. And I'll also say I think there are some areas of the government still that can be trimmed. That's my personal opinion. And yet, I think there are unintended consequences that are happening in terms of impact to companies, researchers that are doing fundamentally necessary innovative work for our way of life, whether that's being mindful of all walks of life to scientific development to other areas. There's I think so. I think the thing we started having these conversations internally on March 3rd. We have a Monday morning meeting, and that was the day where we started taking a different road as an organization and really for our clients. And we've traveled that road with our clients since that moment. And there's really a few things that I think have served us really well and have served our clients really well in this environment. The first thing is that you kind of got to get over it, right? That this administration is here to change things. And that is going to be true for the next 3 years, 3.5 years or so. And it is not time to stick your head in the sand. It is not time to stay on the sidelines. It is a time to double down and refocus of how you go get this funding. I think in 2024, the reason why the win rates, the overall approval rates were so low is because everyone was submitting using AI. Everyone and their friends. And so the number of submissions that went in popped significantly. It was right around where the number was at COVID when everyone was writing grants because of a lot of money and no one could go in the lab. In 2025, that number has come down significantly. We've heard from NCI, we hear from our reviewers that sit on study section, it's between 1/3 less to 1/2 lower volume in terms of submission activity in 2025 for April and September. It has come down significantly. April was, I think, a low water mark, and people sort of came out of the closets of fear in September, but volume was down significantly, and that's because there was concern about if I get an award, are they going to honor it? Will there be an SBIR program? Will there be an NIH? And what we said from our early March, and we said this in a webinar approximately every 3 weeks, so you can go back and check our records, but we absolutely have been saying this consistently, and it served our clients well of stay the course. If you continue to submit quality grants to a greater variety and diversified sources of funding and continue to include the federal sources there, you will be successful. And you may not be successful the first time, maybe not the second time, but over time, the third time, the fourth time, you will be successful. It will happen. And that is what has worked really well for us. We had this summer, we had the best sales cycle we've ever had. We were hiring through the summer, and we hired a couple of people from our competitors that we knew before they went to our competitors. Some of our competitors had pretty significant layoffs, which is unfortunate and sad. But I think the point is, when it's darkest, the average reaction of the average person is to wait it out and just see what's going to happen. And that makes total sense. Like, we feel it too. It's very chaotic. And yet that creates an opportunity. And we saw this leading up to September 30th at the government year end, where that paid dividends. We had the most number of notice of awards that we've ever had in fiscal 25, not just because of volume, but because of our win rate. And yes, we are good, but an adder or a turbocharge to that win rate happened because there weren't as many submissions. Right? It's just supply and demand. It's just an easier place to play. And so, yes, we are good at what we do, but I think the character of being chaos and continuing to stay focused on your business, that's really why we're here, is for our clients. That approach has worked really well. And I think that's going to continue into 2026. I mean, we are looking at, if you take a step back, the big beautiful bill was passed that called for a 47% reduction of the NIH total budget. The SBIR program is up for renewal in like now. So there's not an active solicitation. So it needed to get renewed on October 1st for it to continue to be in play. So that has to happen, when the government reopens, when a budget does get passed or Congress gets their act together. And so you look at those things that are up ahead, and those feel as scary as it felt in February, March, April, right? And yet what we said to ourselves in February, March, April is stay the course and don't put your head in the sand. Don't stay on the sidelines. And that worked really well then. And I think it's going to work really well for those that pay attention to that in 2026. And there are some bright spots. The Senate Appropriations Committees have said, this is bipartisan on both the House and the Senate, NIH, we have your back. We want a 1% increase, not a 47% decrease. And as I'm sure everyone knows, the way this money actually flows is in a three-part way. You pass the law, then it goes to our Appropriations Committee to actually allocate it to agencies and sub-agencies, and then it goes to the agencies for them to disperse it. So all three of those things have to happen, and we're in kind of step two of well, we don't have a budget yet, but even after a budget, there still has to be appropriations committees to meet. The other thing that's interesting in the company granting programs, it was a epic winter this summer for universities. I think billions and billions of dollars got cut. I think something like over 2,500 grants were just stopped and canceled in an academic setting. And the amount of money that was dispersed from the NIH to academics came down considerably. Plus, a lot of this is still in litigation at the universities you hear about. What I find interesting is that in the fiscal 2025, the SBIR program was in 2025 that ended on 9/30 with $10 million more was spent versus 2024. So actually a nominal amount, so call it the same amount of money went out. So it didn't go down for the SBIR program in fiscal 25, which was the budget that was approved under a continuing resolution for that government year. So that actually happened, which was interesting. And a lot happened in the last 3 weeks of September. And that's not too uncommon. So that happened. There's also, last thing I'll say on the bright spots in the future are that there is a lot of talk around increasing the SBIR allocation. So today it's under 4% of every federal budget that's over $100 million have to allocate just under 4% to the SBIR program. There's a bill circulating in the House right now that's got bipartisan support to make it 8%. So more than doubling. There's also a call in Project 2025 to increase the allocation of the SBIR program. So whatever your political leanings may be, I think it's fair to say this administration has followed Project 2025 pretty much to a T. And there are some pretty horrific things in there, and in my opinion, some pretty challenging things that have happened that should not be happening. But there's also a call to increase the SBIR program. So there's some good news in the future as well. Obviously, we have to see how it all plays out. And we've got some thoughts around how to do that. But I think stay the course is the short story.
So given that we're in this shutdown and the fact that the SBIR, STTR program was not reauthorized or renewed at the end of September, and NIH and NFS have told researchers they're not processing any new applications or making new awards until, the government reopens, right? So you mentioned tech transfer offices should stay the course. So are you saying they should continue preparing proposals for future cycles, even though we have no idea when programs might even restart?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, 100%, 110%. Yes. We don't know when the government's going to open. And I feel for every employee that's furloughed. And I also feel for the people that are working that aren't getting paid. It's like air traffic controllers, right? And TSA agents. But I don't, and we're at the last record was 34 days. I don't see this happening anytime soon. in terms of the government reopening and at a budget or whatever it is, or continuing resolution getting agreed to. I don't think that's going to happen, I would say, very soon. But I do know that the government is going to reopen at some point. I also know that the SBIR program is politically very attractive, and it pays for a lot of salaries for a lot of very loud constituents in Senate and House, for Senate and House, representatives. So and it's never not been renewed over the course of 43 years. And every 3 years, it has to get renewed. So that's happened for the last almost 50 years. And I think there's clear, the evidence is there, there's clear bipartisan support from this administration for companies. The other reality is that among all government programs, from food stamps to farm subsidies, there's almost no better ROI than the SBIR program. And so it drives economic growth, it drives company advantage, it drives country advantage. So this is a program that I think to not be renewed is problematic fundamentally for the administration. So like the government will reopen at some point, the SBIR program will get reauthorized. And what's on the table is that bill that's being circulated is to put it into permanent law, not have it had to be renewed every 3 years. So that would obviously be good for the program. That is going to happen, I think. And if you're not ready for when it reopens, the next available submission deadline is January 5th. If you're not ready to submit for, near the end of December or early January, you're missing out on an opportunity. And we've thought about this as recently as this morning. Let's say the sky continues to fall and it doesn't open until early 2026, and they either push that January 5 deadline to January 20th, or they skip it and just go right to April. That means that if you weren't preparing for a January submission, you are going to miss that opportunity to work on one for January and work on one for April. And so I think there's not a lot in this. I can't get a government to reopen personally. Like, I don't have control over that. I can't get Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump to agree on something, and everyone else, right?
I don't think anybody can. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've written every couple of weeks to all of my congressional representatives. But what I can control, what we can control at Grand Engine, what our clients can control is, are you ready when opportunity strikes? And I can promise everyone that, and the opportunity is going to be there to submit. And I would rather over-prepare for something that is going to happen than just take a holiday for 2 months and then have to play catch up, because that adds 6 months to my development window. And the smart clients get that, and they're continuing to stay the course. So I can't predict exactly when the government's going to reopen, but I can promise you it's going to reopen. And I can promise you that there's going to be opportunity. And if you are ready for that, when that opportunity presents itself for the submission window being open, you're going to have a jump. And it's going to be an advantaged position, because many people are not going to do that. So take an opportunity to do what's in your control. And I think waiting 6 months or a year, that could be the difference between your product being what's in the market and someone else's product that's in the market, and they win and you don't. So I think there's every reason in the world to continue to stay committed, and no reason to not. Every reason that says wait, I think is a bad reason. I don't think it serves our clients. It doesn't serve our marketplace well at all. I don't believe there's any good reason to wait. So I think now is the time to go more, because that's what we're doing with my companies at our R&D. I mean, we're continuing to focus. It's a smart play, and to not do that, I think, is not smart.
Now, I want to go back to something you said earlier, Sam, about AI, because you mentioned hearing from program officers about the significant increase in poor quality proposals that were clearly drafted by AI. As an attorney, I've had some colleagues do that too, and they've gotten in trouble in other areas of the law. So how is this changing the competitive landscape, and what do you think companies should keep in mind?
Great question. AI will hallucinate references, and in the legal world,
it's been bad in the legal world. Made up cases, citations. Yep.
Yeah, we have a house rule of you own the bibliography, so don't use AI. So, yeah, it's a really good point. So, and I will also say there's a great potential. I think AI is the fourth, I'll call it industrial revolution. Agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, semiconductor, internet, and is the third. And I think this is going to be big. It's already big, but it's going to be as big as the internet and semiconductor technology. And today, the AI LLMs are very good at putting words on a page, and they are not good at all at writing winning words on a page. And those are obviously two very different things. And so we've got a slide that we talk about on our webinars that talks about entry criteria in the first column, where to use AI in the middle. And then the last column is, okay, how do you win versus how do you write? And I think you have to know how and why your grant is going to win before you crack open a large language model to help you. And we do that we use AI to do some research, finding relevant models, looking at more efficient ways to do an experiment. But we have got to think through, from our experience and expertise, how and why the grant's going to win, and document that. Either that's an Ames page that's right and tight, or a grant thesis. And also background materials, dossiers, papers, technical materials. And when you have that as entry material, we bought an AI writing company that was focused on grants called Streamline. And they've got a discover module, an evaluate module, and an apply module. And we looked at 25 different companies, and Streamline had the best tech, from the rigor of where they approach to an intuitive user interface. And we spent a lot of money on the company because we believe, and we have been playing. We have our own internal co-pilot, but it's confidential. We spent a lot of time thinking about this and investing in this AI-enabled space. And we are very clear that today, our best of breed AI technology is very good at writing a first draft, right? And if you have those entry materials, it is not, and it can also be good at elements of a second draft. One of our favorite prompts is, we write for clarity and brevity. Right? It's good at doing that kind of thing. But you gotta read it after it writes it for you. But it is not good. It does not have the corpus of knowledge about converging on the goal of what does that content need to be to win in this domain space, to this technology type, in this disease arena. It cannot do that today. We're actually working on that. We've got a research project actively going called Prediction Engine, which is in early days. But AI is good at speeding up what you have to do, and reducing the brain drain of, okay, I know what I need to write. Now I actually have to write it. AI is great at knowing how to do that for you. But the peril, and it is, if you read a grant written by AI, or read really anything written by AI, you can tell. It's not that hard to really tell. And it is self-evident to reviewers, and you get an automatic, okay, they really didn't write this, AI wrote it, and that just puts you in a different, less favorable bucket to review. And the NIH has responded. I mean, there is now a rule that any one PI cannot submit more than 6 grants in a year. That was their reaction to the volume that happened in 2024. So I think that's probably going to get relaxed, but that's the rule now. So it doesn't matter if you can use AI to write them. You're only allowed to submit 6. So good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck. And I wanted to ask you, Grant Engine works across multiple sectors, from life sciences to defense technology to space technologies to energy and infrastructure. Are there particular areas or technologies that you see as especially well positioned for non-dilutive funding success in 2025 and beyond?
So we have a legacy. I've been in the life sciences for over 20 years, and that's a lot of what the legacy Grant Engine has done. We actually, earlier this month in October, purchased a company that it was exclusively focused on defense technology, because that is a different animal, both in funding agencies and in what you're writing, and obviously the content of what you're submitting. So we had a roadmap to go into non-human health, but this opportunity presented itself, and an excellent team, great track record, and that what gave us a 2 or 3 year head start, right, in the defense tech arena. So we'll be formally announcing that soon, but really excited about that team. So that's some news to watch on that acquisition announcement. To your question, certainly defense, like cybersecurity, unmanned vehicles, whether that's air, land, or sea, border security, I think is a high priority from this current administration. I think we're hearing that this trend towards nationalism in this country, I think is more national security in terms of our physical borders versus having an influence in overseas conflicts. So I think broadly speaking, defense is an area that budgets have gone up since Trump has been in office, more so than they normally do. So I think that's an area that's going to see more money and more activity. I think the nature of that activity is going to change, but that's an area, broadly speaking, that will get more work, especially cyber and especially AI-enabled drone activity. I think we've seen that in Ukraine clearly be an edge for Ukraine against Russia. So that's big. Space Force was founded on the Trump 45 administration. And I think that as we continue in the current administration, Space Force, NASA, and other extraterrestrial or explanetary activities is going to be a priority. I believe human health and life sciences is always going to be a priority. I think we're seeing that with budgets continue to be quite robust at the Department of Defense proper. The congressionally directed programs got hit quite a bit. Those are down 57% in the big, beautiful bill. But I think NIH, NSF also got hit. But I think NIH, I don't think those budgets are going to go down by 47%. So I think life sciences is an area that will continue to be of interest. And I think it's going to be more and more. You see ARPA-H doing some really interesting programs. They're holding proposers' days. They're issuing solicitations. They're receiving solicitations, as is DARPA. So they're open for business during the shutdown. I'm going to be in DARPA in DC for a full day session for our technology office that's happening on November 12th. That's scheduled. They did a webinar yesterday. So they're open for business. These advanced research programs are open for business. So I think where you see compression and reduction in budgets and available budgets are things like clearly USAID, I think the CDC has gotten hit pretty hard. So that has implications on SAMHSA, NIH, other programs like that were legacy in CDC. But I think academic funding is going to continue to feel pressure, which is very unfortunate for leadership scientific leadership in this country, not just the people, but the country continuing to lead the field. So I think that's what I would say from good to bad, if I could kind of put it on the good news versus bad news horizon. Yeah.
So what advice would you have, Sam, for startups and tech transfer offices who might be feeling discouraged right now?
Yeah. Well, first, I'll just say it makes total sense that people would be discouraged or feel lack of motivation. Like it makes total sense. Like there's not those programs for support. I think we have a house rule in our company that life happens for us, not to us. And if you take that perspective, like what is going on all around us, I think this is an opportunity to become more fit, to increase fitness. And if you're in the sciences, evolution is a thing, and evolution is survival of the fittest, right? That's what Charles said. So I think in a very real way, and however messy it is, and it's messy, this is an opportunity to improve your fitness. And that's true for you as an academic PI, as an entrepreneur, as a tech transfer leader, as every member of the tech transfer world, and every member of the Grand Engine team. Like it's an opportunity to improve your fitness. That's how we look at it. And if you're more fit, you will survive and thrive. And I think that we are being challenged in ways that I would say are not appropriate, but we're being challenged, from this administration, but we're being challenged nonetheless. And it's an opportunity to just ignore the noise of it and take it on as a challenge. So I think many people will not do that. And so there's an opportunity to create some differentiation for yourself as you do that. And what that looks like is identify the programs that are available. Like another area that's gotten big reduction and is going to continue to get reduction is climate energy grants. And that whole sector has gotten hammered by this administration. And there are still, like ARPA-E has solicitations out for rare earth mining called magneto, precious metals, precious materials that are used for semiconductors and other innovative products that need rare earth metals to operate. And that's the solicitation that came out from ARPA-E. So so look for where there is opportunity and recognize that it is probably going to get more competitive. We've seen that longitudinal approval rate come down over the last 20 years at the NIH SBIR program. So it's no surprise that line is continuing in a trend, right? This is not a shock. We've been seeing this for 20 years. It's jagged and we're on the low side of the jag. And so I think it's an opportunity to find out where opportunities are. Call us. Happy to help you find those opportunities through online AI searches, or we have a manual way to do that as well. And then go after those. Our blog is a great repository for learning what wins grants. We're happy to have a conversation about that as well. And get more fit on submitting more competitive applications. And that will serve you well in your career. And as I like to say, shift happens, and it's what you do and how you respond to it. And I think we are experiencing a major shift, and it's an opportunity to get stronger, not stick our heads in the sand. So I would offer that, when the going gets tough, let's get going. This is about improving our competitiveness as a country, and we all have enjoyed receiving funding from our taxpayer dollars. Let's honor that by getting stronger and doing it better.
I think what I'm taking away is keep fit and get stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. And find, win, manage is the way to do that. And we're happy to help you. You're not alone. None of us are alone. We're part of the ecosystem. We're here to help companies. And yeah, come knock on our door. We're here for you and with you.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. This has been a really great discussion. Really enjoyed learning about Grant Engine. Thank you for all the work that you're doing. It's been an absolute delight having you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Lisa. I really respect and admire the knowledge you bring. It's a great medium and you do it so well. So thank you. It's been an honor to be a guest of yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sam. Sam, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. Your work at Grant Engine is helping to ensure that innovative companies have access to the resources they need to bring breakthrough technologies from the laboratory to the marketplace, especially during these challenging times. For our listeners who want to learn more about Grant Engine services or connect with Sam's team,